name is Arthur Brown. Today I want to discuss my children. That's right. We talk about generational wealth all the time. Well, guess what? For me, not only do I look at generational wealth, but I look at legacy. How do you leave a legacy? And who do you trust with your legacy? Who's going to help you build your legacy? And for me, it's always been my kids, and it would have been my wife, but she's no longer with us. So with that being said, let's roll. So how to build a legacy for your kids? Well, I have a variety of ways of doing that. I'm going to go back, way back. I have 4 kids, like we talked about. I have an older son who I didn't know he was mine until he was almost 4 years old. I had him come out and visit me for the summers like a dad would normally do, right? I want to be able to understand who my son was. I wanted him to understand my lifestyle. So when my son used to come and visit me for the summer, the one thing I always did, I used to go to Target or Walmart. I used to get these books, and it would have addition, it would have subtraction, it would have paragraphs to read through them and understand and explain to them how to write that information down and just be articulate. That's the one thing I always did with him, always. And then, of course, me running track in college, I'm signing him up to run track as well. Granted, I'm 5'10", 5'9"3/4". My son is about 6'2", so I know he's going to be pretty tall. But with that being said, academics were always first and foremost with all of my kids, particularly my oldest one, because I didn't know how his environment was back home. I had an idea, but I didn't know that. My wife, at that time, she was big on academics. I was big more on the sports side because that's what I grew up doing, that's what I loved, that's what I was passionate about. Fast forward, when my son moved out here with me, starting his high school years, he basically graduated from high school with a 3.5 GPA. He was a preferred walk-on at CU football, and most importantly, he got his degree, and he got his degree in business. Fast forward, he got his master's, MBA. He's doing quite well right now, but the thing I focused on my oldest son was, and with you guys, when you have kids and you find out that those kids are not going to be with you full time, that's tough. It's really tough. And you have to figure out a way to manage that. The one thing I would suggest and say to each and every one of you, you got to figure out a way to be a friend. Let me say that again, a friend with the mom or the dad, because you guys have one amazing asset. And that asset is going to allow you to better understand yourselves as you get older in life, because that's that person that you guys created. So example, my son has 2 families. He has his family with me, and he has his family with his mom. And it's amazing how I sit down and I talk to him. He said, "Dad, I'm just so frustrated." I said, "What are you frustrated about?" And he tells me the situation at home with his cousins and things of that nature. And I look at, wow, he has grown up tremendously, because he would tell you, if he was still back home in Gary, Indiana, his life would have been totally different. He was miserable when he first moved out here because all his friends, everybody was back home. But like I said, if you sit down and you talk to him now, he will tell you this was the best decision I could have ever made for him in his future. And his legacy is going to be incredible. When I talk about his legacy, for me mentally, I created that without him even knowing that. Number one, I gave him discipline when it came to academics, because when he was here with me, he was back home with his mom. He knew when he left here, he had an idea of how I wanted him to be as he continued to grow into a man. And here's the ironic thing, he was raised Jehovah's Witness. I was raised Baptist. So that's a whole nother unique thing behind it, right? And I know both religions very well, because my dad, his wife is Jehovah's Witness. So I knew exactly what I was going to be up against when I brought my son here with me. And one thing I did, I always made sure he went to church with me, because he needed to understand how his brothers and sisters were raised within the church. But then on the same token, I need to understand a little bit more about Jehovah's Witness. So I created that academic environment for him, but also I created an outlet for him. It's really with track and field. I wish I would have had him during the season for football, because he would have been a better football player. He probably would have been an incredible basketball player. He did play basketball in high school. But what I did for him on the athletic side, I hired a track coach. And he will tell you that track coach was hard as hell. Coach pushed him to no other. And fast forward, his senior year, they won state in the 4x2. They set the school record. And he was on that podium, and he was basically one of the best runners in the state because of that time frame when I invested in him. And I tell each and every parent that I made it a point that I never wanted a parent to come up to me with any of my kids and say, "Oh, that kid is playing just because his dad is the coach. If he wasn't the coach, he'd probably be sitting on the bench." No, I wanted that parent to be like, "Hey, is Isaiah playing today? Is Kennedy playing today?" Because if they're not, we're going to have a hard time beating this team. I wanted that, and I made sure I was going to invest in each and every one of my kids to do that. But my first one, that was Marion. I learned a lot from him. 3 factors that I look at when I raise my kids to prepare them for the real world. And number one was definitely the academic aspect. Number two was investing in their talent. When kids are so small, they don't know what their talent is going to be. You could groom them into almost anything you want when it comes to athletics, right? If they have just a little bit of athletic ability, they could go far. And most importantly, they have to believe in that, right? Number three, most important out of probably all of them, is their mindset. How are you going to prepare them for the real world? How are you going to make them feel like their success, their skin tone doesn't impact who they are as a person? Because my kids, they went to a predominantly white school, but they killed it. So let's dive into that. I used to always make sure that when they had free time, they were focused on their books no matter what. The 3 things my kids did on a regular basis: they would practice, study, and eat. That's what their lives entail. Don't get me wrong, they have fun. You know, one of these days we'll walk through my house and you can see what they have fun with, because they would never come up to me and say they were bored. And if they did, I would look at them like they were crazy. I wanted them to always have more than what I had. Getting into the 3 aspects for me was always the academic side, the athletic side, and the mental, emotional side. Because I felt like in this society, this day and age, you needed that to either be successful or you needed that to survive. My kids are very successful right now in life. A lot of times you don't know what that true talent is. Since I have a track and field background, all 4 of my kids ran track. 3 of the 4 competed at the highest level, which was track and field in college. Every last one of them, other than my oldest son. And if you talk to him to this day, he would say, "Dad, I should have ran track in college." Yes, you should have, son, but that's okay. You got your master's in business and you competed in football, something that you loved at that time. I spent time with them after their normal practice. We put a plan in place. I wanted them to enjoy it. I never wanted them to feel like I was pushing them to do something that they didn't want to do. And then for me, I did my research. I found out who was the best track coach, who was the best hurdle coach, because all 3 of my kids ran hurdles in college. I even ran hurdles in college. When they were younger, I knew they weren't going to be the fastest. There's always somebody faster than you, right? But if you had a specialty event in terms of like a hurdler, or if you were a long jumper or a high jumper, those things are kind of hard to come by. And I knew if they mastered those particular events, they would be sought after. And guess what? They were. This is the reason why I say it's so important to invest in your kids. The return was incredible for me. Oldest son got opportunity to play football at CU. He experienced something that he could only dream about. It came true for him because he manifested it. If you manifest, typically it's going to come true if you desire it. And I think all my kids always felt like they desired it and they wanted it and they manifested. And that's something I taught them. All 4 of my kids, they were all different. They were all individually motivated to do something. They always wanted to prove me wrong, right? And I love that. I really do. But my son Isaiah ran track at University of Northern Colorado. My daughter Kennedy went to one of the most prestigious engineering schools in the nation. And she has a school record, by the way, in the 400 hurdles. She got academic scholarship as well as an athletic scholarship. And then my youngest one, this is the one, she never wanted to run the hurdles. She ended up being the best hurdler in the family. She was great in basketball. I invested, once again, in basketball trainers for each and every one of my girls. But getting back to my youngest one, she's going to be the one that will graduate from college with no student loans, no car payment, and to have about $10,000 set aside in a mutual fund. I call it debt-free. And we just talked about that yesterday. I said, Cameron, you know how blessed you are? And the reason why she was able to do that is because she always saved her money. Always. And we sit down each and every day to go over how does she invest that $10,000. For me, it's amazing. My oldest son has 3 properties already, and he just turned 33. My oldest daughter, she lives in Houston now. She was highly recruited to work in jobs in LA, Miami, Colorado, and she chose LA, but now she currently lives in Houston. Same scenario, she has her master's in structural engineering. We always have one of them, right? And Isaiah is that one. He is free-spirited. He's trying to figure out what he wants out of life, but most importantly, he's the one that's going to keep this whole family together because of his energy, and he knows he could put it on whenever he wants to. If he wants anything in life, that's going to be the guy that you want to hire. He did my freaking marketing. He did an incredible job. Isaiah's going to be the one kid that's going to say he had the opportunity to work with his mom and his dad. No, the other 3 could never ever could say that. So he got a chance to see me in action, and he got a chance to see how his mom had my back when times were good as well as when times were bad. You investing in your kids. How do you do that? Well, I want to tell you something. There's a ton of organizations, I'm pretty sure in your neighborhood too as well, that will motivate. They'll preach to these kids. They'll keep them out of trouble. They'll put them in the right situation to be successful. You got to do your research. You got to find out what organizations are doing that. And I'll also be honest with you. It's a lot of times when your kids are competing and they're playing basketball or football or running track or baseball, whatever it is, there's always going to be one or two kids that are going to stand out on the team, right? I would pick that kid's parents' brain. I would say, hey, look, do you have your kids working out one-on-one with yourself, or do you pay for somebody to go do that? Do you think I could reach out to them? Because most people want to see kids be successful, right? And for me, I was able to find those coaches that helped me to put my kids in a situation where they were successful. So don't feel just because you don't have the money, you can't do that. You could definitely do that. But I'm going to keep it real with you guys. It's like anything else when I talk about generational wealth or I talk about legacy. In order for that to happen, you're going to have to invest as well. You're going to have to set aside an hour, 30 minutes, a little bit of time makes a huge difference with your kids, trust me. Because when they see you at that basketball game or in the stands at a football game or in a tent at a track meet, they get excited. My mom, unfortunately, was not able to go to any of my sporting events when I was younger because she was working either one job or two jobs. She was just trying to support 3 kids. And I look back on that and I tell my kids to this day, I am truly blessed because I was able to coach them, I was able to train them, but most importantly, I was there for them at their events. And that's huge because if I didn't have the type of job I have, I could honestly say I probably wouldn't be in that situation to do that and support them. Yeah. And I don't talk enough about my wife. Everything that we have is all through the man above, God himself. I'm going to tell you that, and I need to start talking more about that because I would not be where I'm at if it wasn't for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Me and my wife met when we were 20 years old working at Kmart. I was in the shoe department. She's in menswear, and we hit it off, right? I won't go into detail right now, but that'll be another story. Without having an amazing partner, none of this would have been possible, right? And what I mean by that is we had a plan in place. When I met my wife, she was actually studying for the LSAT. She wanted to be a lawyer. I was still trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do. And when we moved to Colorado, she put everything on hold to follow me, to follow my dreams. And we knew right then and there we needed to make a decision. And that was both of us could not have career jobs if we're going to start a family. Somebody was going to have to sacrifice. And I remember her mom and dad were so disappointed in her because all that hard work and effort and energy that they put into her to be a successful black woman in society. But she saw something in me that I didn't see. As we got more into our relationship and we eventually got married, she believed in me more and more and more. And as we started to have kids, we put a plan in place for each and every one of our kids. And to this day, I look at my kids and, when my wife was sick and when she passed away of cancer, I remember this like it was yesterday. Sometimes when you have your kids and you say, did you raise them the right way? Do they get it? Are they going to be able to make it in this world? And when she passed away, that put me at ease because I knew we raised them the right way. They were there for me. They picked me up when I didn't think I could get picked up. They took care of me, and to this day, they are so strong. They are so freaking resilient, and resilient is one of the words that I live by, right? It's staying humble, staying persistent, and being resilient. So for me, they definitely have a resilient gene. So yes, a partner makes all the difference in the world. And here's the deal. If you don't have a partner, it doesn't mean you can't do it, right? My mom didn't have a partner, and she has 3 freaking amazing children, me, my sister, and my brother. And one day I'll have them on and we'll talk as a family and you kind of understand what I mean by that. You've heard my story as far as maybe how I raised my kids, what I did to push them, motivate them, how they became amazing adults. And don't get me wrong, everybody has their demons that they fight through each and every day. For me, when you raise 4 amazing black African American children who are now adults, you're going to have animosity. You're going to have envy. My daughter went to one of the most incredible schools there are when it comes to engineering, School of Mines, here in Colorado. However, that school was probably 98% Caucasian. The thing that allowed her to be successful was because her high school was probably 95% Caucasian, right? But then she went to church, which is 99.9% black. Most of her friends that she grew up with, her basketball team was 99% black. Just because they look at her as being the outside cast, if you want to call it that, the person that oh, she can't relate to us because she's black and you're in an all-white school. I used to always say, you're the most beautiful black girl there is in the world. Girls in the world. Black women probably have it the hardest in the U.S. I'm just gonna keep it real. Sometimes from dating, as you get older in life, real estate, job, being able to get promoted in the job. So for me, I made it a point to make sure that my kids, they were motivated, but they were more than anything else, they were mentally strong. They were emotionally strong to carry what was going to happen to them as they got older. So if you're a parent and you're watching this video, we know you're watching it for a reason, right? Reach out to me. Send me a text. DM me. I don't care. Because for me, I think I've been able to understand all facets when it comes to being raised in a predominantly black neighborhood, going to predominantly black high school, going to predominantly white college, adjusting to a predominantly white society, being top 1% in the U.S. and I'm black. It has allowed me to be confident in who I am. I was excited about my career, but I wasn't confident. And my kids would tell you the same thing. There was way too many times that they weren't confident. And the one piece of advice I would give any parent who reaches out to me or is looking at this video, you gotta always build up your kids, always. When they have a bad game, you build them up. When they have a bad day, you build them up. When they get a bad grade, you build them up. Because they look at you for validation. And you have to give them that validation and let them know that they're amazing, they're incredible, they're beautiful. And if you do that, the sky's the limit. So whatever you do, make sure you always give your kids the confidence to be successful in life. Please subscribe, guys, because I'm going to have a ton of information coming out over the next year. We're going to dive into so many things. And once again, feel free to reach out to me. Send me a message. I will be more than happy to respond. You can follow me on all socials at The Arthur Brown.